All right, everybody, welcome back with another episode of 8-Minute Interviews. This time with an old friend, Karen Weeks from Ordergroove. Let's get started. Karen, if you don't mind, introduce yourself and tell us about Ordergroove.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Weeks. I'm the SVP of People at Ordergroove. We are a tech startup post-Series C that focuses on recurring revenue for retailers and brands, so subscription programs and those sort of things.
Tell us a little bit about the founders. What's their story?
Yeah, so Greg Alvo started the company. He actually started it because he plays tennis, and often his tennis racket, the strings would break and he wouldn't have his next set. And he said, there's got to be a way to know when I need my next set of strings. And so he started a subscription business to get his strings on a recurring basis. He was able to go back and say, I ordered them every 90 days or whatever it was. And that was sort of the impetus for the whole conversation. He definitely is the first to say he was way too early to the market. It was 10 years ago. It really didn't start taking off till probably 7 or 8 years ago. But the concept of how do I not worry about that stuff as a consumer? How do I live my life, not worry about if I've got light bulbs, toilet papers, diapers, dog food, tennis racket strings, and just be able to live my life? That was his theory behind building the company.
For starters, where can folks find your opportunities? Where's the best place to find it?
Yeah, so definitely just our career site, which is ordergroove.com/careers. That feeds onto other platforms, but that's probably the easiest and the full list.
And do you all hire early professionals within the organization? And if so, what are the roles typically?
We do. Right now, we actually have an SDR or a sales development rep role open, which is perfect for someone earlier in their career. We have hired some engineers, and then we've also hired client services folks earlier in their career. So account managers, even some of our technical folks may only have a few years of experience under their belt.
And in a world where you're hiring early professionals across the board, is it easy for them to identify the roles that are best suited for them on your site? And if so, what? Is it like labeled entry level, or how do they find it quickly?
Yeah, we try to specifically call out in the sort of about you section, how many years of experience or what kind of experience we're looking for, because it could be internships, count. So we try to call it out in that area of the job description.
Wonderful. And in a non-remote world, what locations do you typically recruit for?
Yeah, we used to be very focused on New York City. We're actually going to stay remote for the foreseeable future. And even past that, we're moving to a flexible work from anywhere policy. So anywhere in the US, it's nice if you're sort of near New York, Denver, or Austin, just because we've got hubs there. But really, we're hiring all over the place.
Wonderful. Jumping to the resume, what is the first thing you look for on a resume?
First of all, we really want to see someone sell themselves. So tell us about what you did. The job title may or may not be helpful because companies call different roles different things all the time. So explain some of your key wins, key responsibilities, something you're really proud of. That's actually what we look for more on the resume versus what your title was.
And there's, it looks like we're moving more and more away from it, but there still remains this space that occupies a resume for the objective. Do you read objectives? Do you wish it weren't there? Would you like to see something else in that place instead?
I care more about it when it's telling part of the story. If you are an account manager and your objective is to be an account manager, I kind of get that because you applied for the account manager role. But if you're coming from a different industry or you're coming from a larger company and you're specifically targeting a tech startup or something in the e-commerce space, or you're moving from sales to client services or whatever your story is, that's where I think the objective can be helpful because it sets me up to then understand why I need to be looking at your resume.
Would you be in favor of the objective completely disappearing, but that space occupies a section called About Me?
Yes, 100%, because that's what I think the objective should be.
I mean, there's so few spaces on a resume where someone can actually speak to.
Lunch is ready.
What's that, sweetie?
Lunch is ready.
Oh, thanks. Is GPA important?
No, actually, we don't really worry about that. I'm trying more and more to not even worry about like what school you went to or anything like that, especially if you did internships or you have something that shows that helped you sort of be more prepared for the work world.
What about cover letters? If you read them, when do you read them?
It's interesting. It actually goes back to sort of that objective or about me section. If there's something in your cover letter that's helpful for me, maybe you are making a career change, maybe there's something about your background, like there's a gap or something you feel like you need to sort of help explain so that I don't just mark you right off. That's when I think it's interesting. Otherwise, I usually look at the resume first, and then if I have some questions, I look to see if they have a cover letter to help explain some of those questions.
During the application process, are there any common behaviors that you see that might be red flags that you would suggest candidates could avoid?
Yeah, I understand that people want to submit themselves for roles they're hoping they could get, but when you are just so off base, it actually, not that I remember your name, but I do think sometimes it hurts your brand because I'm like, did you even read this job description? You just applied to anything that has this title. And so I think that that's more off-putting than, you shouldn't have typos in some of those things, but life is life. But if you're applying to something where I just have no idea why you applied to this, that's going to make me just reject you right away.
Great. Awesome feedback. Tell us a little bit about the interview process.
So we really try to give you a chance to meet as many Ordergroovers and get to know Ordergroove as much as possible because you're assessing us just as much as we're thinking about if you're going to be the right fit. So it definitely starts with either a hiring manager, phone screen, or a conversation with myself. Then sometimes we have an exercise that's skills-based. It really depends on the role. We have a content role open today, so we asked for some writing samples. We may have you do some sort of like pair programming exercise if you're an engineer. But then you come, quote unquote, on site and meet different members of the team. You'll spend more time with the manager. You'll meet some of your peers. You'll meet a cross-functional person. And obviously all of this is over Zoom these days. But we want to give you a chance to actually talk to people that you'd be working with every day. People that might be in your role today or a similar role so they can give a different perspective. And people that that are your stakeholders or the people you'd be influencing in the organization. Again, it gives us a really good idea of what it'd be like to work with you, but it gives you a chance to get to know the team better.
And in dressing for the interview, casual, business casual, or business?
Definitely not business. Business casual is fine. It can be a t-shirt, if it's just sort of like a plain black t-shirt or something like that. As long as you look presentable, it's less about what you're wearing and more about what you're bringing to the conversation.
Have you seen any unique ways that folks have broken through at Ordergroove in terms of getting your attention, maybe outside of the traditional application process?
That's a great question. I think
Or
it's
if not, any
interesting.
suggestions you might have outside of the
Yeah.
traditional application process?
Yeah, it sounds cheesy, but the individual reach out, like if you find me on LinkedIn, which is not hard to do, or you find the hiring manager, and less about, hey, I just applied, please talk to me, but more it comes back to that story. I think especially in today's world, people have really interesting stories, and it's not the obvious, I graduated from school, I got job X, which led me to job Y, which led me to job Z. So tell me your story and tell me why we should consider you, especially if maybe you have a more unique story. And if you find me on LinkedIn and tell me that story, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I'm more willing to look at your application in a different light.
Everything being the same, what typically puts one candidate over the edge?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for us, it is their interest in Ordergroove or our industry or something. You are interviewing at Ordergroove, so tell me about why you're interested in us. And people who can articulate that really well, honestly, often get more attention because those are the kinds of people that are more collaborative, solution-oriented, passionate. So when they get here, they're spending the energy really trying to solve the problems they're trying to solve.
If you had to choose standard looking resume or creatively designed resume?
Creative only if it made sense. Like literally because you're trying to show your personality or something about yourself, creative is awesome.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Elon, which is down in North Carolina.
Karen, thank you so much for donating your time so generously today. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.